So the other day I finished this little show called Yellowjackets. It's a mystery slash thriller slash survival horror that kinda blew my mind and left me obsessed for the past week, so I wanted to talk about it. There won't be any spoilers, there's nothing here that isn't shown or suggested in any trailer, so if you haven't watched it yet, I think you're gonna be fine. And before I get into details, here's a brief synopsis. The show tells a story about a female high school soccer team called, as you might have imagined, Yellowjackets. They get to nationals and on their way there, something happens to their flight and it crashes into the wild, forcing them to survive and find a way back to society as a lot of stuff happens apparently. I'm saying apparently because the show works from two timelines. The past, where we follow these young survivors as they go through their journey in the woods, and we also follow some of them in the present, where 20 years have gone by since the accident and these women clearly have secrets about the time they spent in the wild, while also dealing with marital problems, PTSD and all sorts of terrible shit. The premise by itself was already pure catnip to me, but to my grateful surprise, I was also gifted with a show that was so much more than it meets the eye. Well-constructed characters, a plot that, apart from one episode or another, moves at an incredibly good pace, amazing acting from everyone, like seriously, there's not a single weak link. I think since Succession I haven't seen such a strong ensemble. And, most of all, the mystery and how it develops. Now, you saw the term mystery box at the title of this video. If for any reason this term sounds alien to you, or you heard about it but doesn't exactly know what it's all about, here's a crash course. Mystery box was an idea created by J.J. Abrams, a filmmaking philosophy that he had to build good mystery. What it entails? Well, you simply create a question, or several questions, ones that can represent infinite possibilities, ones that are tailor-made for your audience to dissect, investigate, and engage with your story. You would even say that you don't have to have an answer to those questions, at least not initially. In Abrams' mind, the most valuable aspect of the mystery box was the sense of possibility. Mystery is more important than knowledge. You can see this philosophy throughout most of his work, from the several questions he established in The Force Awakens, to Cloverfield, a franchise whose marketing for all movies consisted mostly in creating curiosity and mystery, and most famously, in Lost, a show that arguably launched his entire career. Now, of course, as time went by, this method of storytelling has gone through all sorts of scrutiny and backlash. Some deserved, some not. I personally have grown to like it less and less, because as we saw with the aforementioned Lost, it will eventually get to the point where you have to answer your questions. And if the answers aren't satisfying, well, your entire story can crumble under the weight of a disappointed audience. It's a device that has lost a bit of popularity in film and TV, but it's a model that some shows still employ from time to time. Westworld, Game of Thrones, Mr. Robot, and most recently, Yellowjackets. Now, we finally circle back to the subject of this video. Because as wary as I was when I first started watching it, I gotta say, this show kinda nails it. It does a slightly different approach to the mystery box, one that's smart, doesn't keep piling mystery after mystery, and most important, the plot twists feel organic and married to the show's themes. How do they do that? Well, that's what I want to talk about today. But for me to break that down, we need to start by the beginning. What are the questions this show poses? For starters, there are two. The first and main one being, what happened with those girls during the time they were lost in the woods? The second being, something from their past is coming back to haunt them. What is it? The big catch here is that, right from the get-go, you get what seems to be the answer of the first question. They apparently went crazy, became a cult, and started eating each other. Literally. Then we go to the present time, where our main characters are all receiving this mail with a weird symbol, one that they recognize from back then. And you are left with this strange feeling. It's episode 1 and you seem to have the answer to almost everything already. So why do you feel unsettled? And this is where things get interesting, because now the big question goes from what happened to how it happened. How did they go from this happy-go-lucky, if a bit dysfunctional soccer team to literal cannibals? You still have questions, and as the season progresses, others come along, like what does the mysterious symbol means? Who is so-and-so? What the fuck is the deal with Misty? More stuff happens and you're trying to figure it all out. And yet, it never feels overwhelming or that the show is 5 steps ahead of you, because as I said before, you were fed a key piece of information right at the beginning. Without noticing, the show has challenged your preconceptions of how a mystery box behaves. Yellowjackets gives you enough answers that make you feel like you know most of it, but leaves enough gaps and questions to make you stay. The result is that the story feels almost like one big uncanny valley. You're being given a half-truth, and things end up becoming more unpredictable because you have most of the pieces, or at least you think you do. The show does feed you more information as it goes along. But you're always missing the big picture. It's a false sense of control that, frankly, it's kind of brilliant. But this peculiar format cannot be sustained if the characters you're going on a journey with aren't compelling enough. And this is another point where I feel like the showrunners took one important decision that makes the mystery box in the Yellowjackets that much more interesting. Which is the fact that the mystery works for the characters, and not the other way around. On shows like Westworld and Lost, for example, the big questions are all about the world our main characters are inserted in. Just like us, the characters are solving this enigma. It's something that they were pulled in. They're not players, they're pawns in a larger scheme they're trying to unravel. But with Yellowjackets, the characters are the enigma. And when they have been developed with so much care and thought, as it was here, it opens so many possibilities. Shauna, Thaisa, Natalie, Misty, we follow them on the present timeline, investigating this weird sequence of events, and we as the audience feel close to them. After all, we're figuring out this puzzle at the same time as they do. But as the story moves along, you can see little hints, bits and pieces that tells us that these women have secrets. And they're definitely not letting us in them. The result? Once again, you feel like you're driving through a big fucking uncanny valley. Because you believe you know these characters, that you have some, shall I say, intimacy with them? And then the show comes at you time and time again and reminds you that no, you don't. You feel a false sense of control, and now you're engaged because you cannot stand just having half of the answers. You want to know what's behind the curtain. Finally, one last thing that helps it all meld together in the big pot of mindfuckery that the show is the element of ambiguity. For this last part, I do have to put a fair warning. There will be light spoilers. It isn't anything big, and I'll try to keep it as vague as possible. It's something that is suggested right on the first few episodes, and I don't personally think it will ruin your enjoyment of the plot. But just in case you want to go in completely blind, I suggest you stop here. Still with me? Cool. Let's keep moving. There's a supernatural subplot that starts to rear its head during the first season, on the past timeline. And this is something that I initially had mixed opinions of, because the themes of isolation, the decay of society, basically seeing this group of girls go full on Lord of the Fireflies always felt like the big hook of the show. So bringing in a mystical element felt like it could kill the realism of it all and go off the rails. But what I appreciate about it is the point that I just mentioned, ambiguity. The show walks on a tightrope that keeps you guessing, because a lot of the more outlandish events do have grounded explanations, while some don't. Are they just coincidences? Did so and so really saw what they saw? Are the woods connected to this in some way, shape or form? It reminds me of a show that I'm really fond of, which is The Leftovers. Damon Lindelof, who was also one of the main writers of Lost, clearly learned a lot from the hardships and backlash he got from that show, and applied these lessons in The Leftovers, bringing a lot of elements involving faith and miracles, but never truly saying whether any of them were real at all, leaving these questions for the characters to ponder and evolve through them. Lindelof even said himself, the focus are the characters, not the mystery. Which in some ways is what happens here. In Yellowjackets, you're as lost as the characters when they're witnessing these bizarre occurrences, but they serve to fuel the themes of the show, to further advance each character's arc and how they react to the situation. Of course, the mystery is engaging, but the ambiguity serves to keep not only us, the audience, on our toes, but also the characters. This results in some crazy actions with far-reaching consequences, but as I said, it's all grounded in character, and it makes the foundation of the plot a lot more solid. Now, to cap things off, I do want to concede something. This is an ongoing TV show with an ongoing mystery. The first season just ended, we're gonna have a second one, and the finale brought some new questions into the fray. The story is not over, so I know I might eat crow, and maybe the show stumbles, it ends up falling on the same pitfalls Lost did, and I have to go back on my words a few years from now. But what gives me some comfort is hearing Ashley Lyle and Bart Nicholson, the showrunners, talking about the story in its future. They have said time and time again how they see the story as a 5-season arc, give it or take it. And they've been pretty set on this idea for a while, so much that back when they were pitching this project to networks, they already had the 5-season plan included. It's not all set in stone, obviously. Productions do change, new ideas pop in, which they do seem to be aware of. And this is all bolstered by the fact that even some of the actresses on the present timeline, like Melanie Lynskey and Juliette Lewis, have gone on record to confirm that they've gotten some future details about their younger counterparts, also that they could better calibrate their performances. So when I hear and read all that, I can't avoid but feel a little reassured. There seems to be a plan, at least, an idea of where these characters will end up. If this pans out for the best or not, only the future will tell us, but for now, the show feels really refreshing on how it approaches and develops mystery. I gotta applaud the showrunners for mixing up the formula, taking risks, and still turning it into very engaging television. There are so many other elements I could keep on praising about this series, but the video is getting too long as it is right now, so I'll leave it at that. I will say though, I hope it continues to improve so that I can have an excuse to talk about it more. But what about you? Have you watched Yellowjackets? Have you not? As always, let me know in the comments what you all think, and see you next time.